Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Shred Your Halo with me Edel and my friend Jharna here. We are in a new location in Pondicherry where we are holidaying for our birthdays, so it's very special. Yes, so thank you so much for joining us for this special episode, and we're going to continue from where we left off the last episode. So we're going to talk about consciousness, and so let's begin. What is consciousness, Jharna?
Well, I think consciousness is awareness, knowing what I'm experiencing and being completely aware of it. That is the only definition I can think of. And in relevance to what we were talking about last week, once you find that awareness of whatever it is that you're trying to understand and how you direct your life based on the new knowledge that you have discovered.
Okay. For me, consciousness is just the present moment. It's everything that is now. And when we are aware of it, we become better people. So I think when people talk about consciousness, it's the experience of the now. So your mind is not flitting to the past, it's not flitting to the future, it's not imagining a future, it's not fearing a future, it's not constructing a future, but it is right now in the essence of the present moment. When did you ever first become conscious of consciousness? And why do you want to be conscious?
I came across the concept of consciousness, I think about 3 years ago, but I started applying it in my life maybe around 2 years ago, because I think initially when I understood the concept of consciousness, I was still trying to intellectualize it, because intellectualizing is another way of coping with a lot of realities that you've come across. At least it was in my case. So I just used it to intellectualize and not actually practice it, because I was afraid of what I might uncover. And about 2 years ago, I realized that I didn't want to continue living like that. So I started putting it into practice in small ways that I could I could do it in a way where it felt a little gentle. But now I'm at a place where I realize that if certain things are a little difficult for me and I have to be conscious of it, I try doing it in a way where I'm not bulldozing myself into being conscious. And I think the most important reason to be conscious is because it makes life clear. There's a lot of clarity when there is consciousness, right? And it's not like you're conscious so you can feel better about where you are, which is something that I do have a habit of doing even now. Sometimes I try to meditate just so I can feel better. But that's not the purpose of consciousness in my life. So I try for the most part to be conscious because it gives me a little more clarity. And like you said, I want to be a better person, and that can only come from knowing what things that I don't already know about and getting a little bit of understanding of my subconscious or unconscious. And that is what I try to do at this point, which is why I think it's important.
I think when we are socialized as children, a lot of who we really are breaks away and fragments from our control and becomes subconscious and then becomes unconscious as well. So we are actually living as fragmented parts of who we wholly came to be, which is kind of a tragedy when you think about it. And then because we live in survival mode, we become more and more embedded in our programming that helped us survive as children, and then the programming takes over. That which came to serve us becomes the master of us, and we don't understand why we do certain things. We don't understand the patterns we repeat. And I was caught in this loop where every time I closed my eyes to sit and meditate, my mind cannot be still. And I used to chide myself, and I was very harsh on myself because I thought, why can't I do this? It's so simple. It's so simple. And then I realized that this is actually diagnosing a condition. This is not to put myself down, but I thought, oh, I have so much of baggage from my past that needs resolution and integration and forgiveness and acceptance and self-love and healing before I can sit in the present moment. So the fact that I couldn't sit in the present moment and let my mind just be one with the universe in all that the universe is doing is a true reflection of how fractured my past actually was. And every time I would jump into the future, it was to imagine me writing a future from the wrongs that the past had served me. So I was living a very fear-based, action-reaction kind of a life. And the fact that my mind could not be quiet for even a nanosecond during my meditation times was a clear indication of how much in the survival mode I was. I think the true purpose of consciousness is that is the right way to live. We are not to use consciousness as a means to make life easier or to make life make sense to us, or to have an explanation or become a guru or seek enlightenment. I don't think those are the purposes at all anymore. I think the purpose of consciousness is just to be, because this is how nature exists. And when all the tangents of the universe coincide in this present moment, as it does every single present moment, the fact that we are not there means we are not aligned with the universe's purpose. And that's kind of a little bit of a tragedy, to be honest, when we are not in sync. What do you think are the benefits of being a conscious person?
The benefits are many, but it doesn't feel very good.
Yeah, benefits don't have to feel good. Yes,
I know, right? It's like working out really hard and then you hate it, but finally you get to see that you look good, you feel healthy. So so I think consciousness, one of the biggest things that I've noticed that have helped me trying to be conscious is I'm able to step back and look at certain things a bit objectively, which I couldn't do before because I was so consumed by how I felt about a particular situation. I would always be reacting instead of looking at a situation and assessing it for exactly what it is. So I remember we were having a conversation about something, and I remember you said you really need to... Hi, sorry, there was a glitch, just picking up where we left off. So I'm able to look at certain situations objectively, maybe not all situations unless I work through them. My reaction time to a lot of things has actually become a little more. Earlier, my reaction time was so fast. If somebody said something to me, I would immediately have to react to them without thinking, because it's just instinctual, right? Especially when you're triggered. So now I'm able to stop for a little bit, look at why I'm reacting this particular way, or looking at that instinct to want to say something immediately back. That has become more clear to me now. Another thing that I've noticed is, if there are times that are a little difficult for me, I try not to assign too much meaning to it right away, because that is how I lived all my life. So I try not to assign meaning to it immediately, even though my mind goes there, because we're trained to do that all the time. So I try working through it and watching what's happening, and because of that I'm able to find solutions to problems or situations or anything that I couldn't do before. These are the two main things that I've noticed when it comes to practicing consciousness. And also it has made me realize that I'm able to meet like-minded people when I'm practicing consciousness. So if I'm not able to see something for myself, I have someone else telling me that, this is another perspective. How about you try looking at it from this point of view? Maybe it'll help. So these are the three big changes that I've seen in my life.
We are all pattern creators, pattern formers. That's how humans are created. That's why we have come as this far with civilizing the world, within quotes. We look at the stars and we see patterns, and therefore we were able to navigate the seas when there was no other landmarks available. We can see patterns in seasons, and that's why we're able to plan ahead. We see patterns in people's behaviors. That's why we're able to diagnose illnesses and psychological conditions. So patterns is everything. And we human beings are very good pattern finders. Unfortunately, in our we haven't just studied patterns and lived according to patterns. Not only have we studied patterns, which is our nature to do, we've disrupted nature's patterns and tried to create an alternative universe for us humans alone, where we flourish and we're in the top of the food chain and everybody else disintegrates as a result of. When you become conscious, suddenly our place in the universe becomes extraordinarily clear. How I am not the master of everybody's fate, but I form just a very crucial link, but just a link in the chain of events that makes up everything. So consciousness gives us a sense of humility that practicing humility doesn't do for us. It also gives us an incredible sense of forgiveness, not just to the world around us, but to ourselves, first of all. I always thought I was very self-forgiving, but I would forgive myself, I would say sorry to myself, but I never could accept that forgiveness, accept that I am sorry. So I could say I loved myself, do loving things, but I couldn't love myself somehow, accept that love. So I was unrequitedly in love with myself. I was unrequitedly living in non-forgiveness. Now, when we understand, when you live a conscious life, somehow loving yourself becomes a byproduct of being part of a bigger picture. And accepting forgiveness and being forgiven and living a life filled with grace just becomes the norm. Life becomes just that little bit more gentle. And I suppose we could all use a hefty dose of gentleness right now. So that has been my experience with consciousness. And what is the difference, do you think, between consciousness and spirituality?
I don't know if there's a difference. I really don't know if there's a difference, because spirituality can be, I don't know what spirituality is. It's just that I'm hoping that consciousness will guide me in a path and the spirit will take over. Because consciousness is what I can provide for myself and watch myself, and then I feel like if I do that, my spirit will support me on that journey.
Okay.
So maybe that is spirituality, because I don't completely understand what spirituality is.
I think spirituality, my idea of spirituality is a little bit corrupted by religions, I have to admit. But I think spirituality in its essence is all the unknown, the deep unknown, the dark unknown, that the human mind cannot comprehend. I will not know everything as long as I'm alive and I am inside this body. I will know a small sliver of something from my point of view is all I will know. Everything else that is hidden from me, I can attribute to the spirituality. And for me, because the unknown is always going to be bigger, I would worship God. So because it was so fearful, what I don't know is so fearful, and the patterns I know is so small. I try to constrict the entirety of my life into this known pattern and lived a very small life. Consciousness makes you brave, not reckless, but brave, because you trust something that's far bigger than you.
That you can't actually see.
And the unknown becomes not technically benevolent, but something that's bigger than just your purpose. Like death becomes sweeter and more inevitable and necessary and acceptable. When death becomes that way, everything else falls into place. Everything that we do, everything that we're trying to do is to somehow immortalize ourselves. And consciousness makes us understand that, well, seasons come, seasons go, things will die, you will increase, you will decrease. It's just what it is.
You begin to understand the impermanence of everything around.
Exactly. So consciousness is the most logical way to live. and somehow we are caught in this frightening loop of inconsequential, illogical, non-conscious living. So once we become conscious, it's very strange, but it is an act of rebellion at the moment when you become conscious and when you become more pliable to being one with a force that is greater than my intentions for my life.
Yeah.
And it's a gentler way of living, and it's a more giving way of living, and it's a more logical way of living, ultimately. So that is our thesis on consciousness. Do you want to add anything to this, Gemma?
I think we were talking about how we can incorporate consciousness in our life. One way is obviously meditation.
Yes.
Because it helps you see clearly.
Yes.
Meditation of any form. I know a lot of people say doing the dishes and being in the present moment. I think doing anything and being in the present moment, I think helps. I've noticed walking helps. Anything that you feel you can just do and not think about anything else and just be in the complete act of it, I suppose will help you lead a more conscious and deliberate life.
The most important thing is not to believe every thought we have. I have one way of thinking, and if I just believe my thoughts, I'm a runaway train. Nothing can stop me till I get derailed, and I will. So conscious living comes from having different perspectives, different points of view, which slow our speed, which put roadblocks into our train of thinking, like compulsively. Anything that puts a roadblock on compulsivity brings us into the present moment. It might seem very jarring, it might seem quite unmooring when it does happen, but it is extremely essential. So reading books, the act of reading books instead of watching it as a movie, any book. I'm not just talking about spiritual books or self-help books or anything like that. I'm talking about the act of reading gives you different perspectives. Let's not just choose books that make us feel correct where we are, but different thoughts from different cultures, from different types of writers. Watching documentaries gives us perspective. And more than anything else, therapy. Go to therapy, because sometimes we need someone else to tell us why we are the way we are. And if we are not in secure friendships where our friends may not be able to tell us the truth, somebody who's trained in it and knows how to break things to us in a very correct way would be very good for us, so that we can use the opportunity that we can't be in the present moment as a diagnostic tool that we're in survival mode and our mind is in a tape loop. So therapy helps. I think having a lot of alone time, not just being a social butterfly, having a bit of an alone time with yourself, being barefoot in the garden, having pets helps a lot. Doing your chores yourself, having a timetable so your life is on a predictable route. These are all the things that you can do. Cooking from scratch is good for you. Cutting out a little bit of sugar every day till you go sugar-free is also very good for us. Plenty of water. Going to bed at a particular time and waking at a particular time. And investing maybe 10-15 minutes every single day into who we are, why we came into this planet. We are not here for a purpose. We are the purpose. So just sitting with ourselves and understanding that we are the purpose can ground us, can not only give us a sense of importance, but also give us an incredible sense of humility and the grandeur of what tiny space we occupy in this grand scheme of things. So all that will help us be a more conscious person, I think. Do you want to add anything?
No, you've pretty much covered it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We'll put out a video once every 2 weeks, so make sure to join us next fortnight for another topic. This is Shred Your Halo from me, Edel, and this is my best friend Jharna. So please click like and subscribe, leave a comment below, and if you think this video will benefit someone in your life, feel free to share, and we'll see you in just another 2 weeks. Bye bye for now.